Welcome back to Best Behaviour, an initiative brought to you by B Corp and ESG Clarity to discuss better governance. As outlined in the first episode, a number of companies certified B Corp issued a call to action to financial services to implement tighter and deeper corporate governance frameworks. And they reached out to us at ESG Clarity to work with us on the campaign for better governance. So I'm so excited to get this off the ground, and reaction to part one has been fantastic. So much support, and it was really great to have George Lampton from Web Asset Management to kick us off. For this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Sophie Kennedy, Joint Chief Executive at EQ Investors. Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Natalie.
Let's talk a little more about the problem we have and recap on some of George's comments on why big corp companies are proposing the change of articles. Can you review the articles of incorporation and what the problem is?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So articles of incorporation or association are essentially kind of the constitution of a company or, a user manual for an organization stating its purpose and its strategy. And it's that really determines who a business is managed for. Typically, it's for the benefit of shareholders. So that means that any business decisions that are made ultimately drive profit growth in order to benefit those shareholders. And this is how we've seen our world economies built, using this idea of shareholder capitalism. And it's this status quo that really has repercussions. So businesses and their leaders are really ignoring the impacts that they're having on the communities they operate in, the environment they depend on, and the employees that drive them forward. If you take a step back, many of the larger global issues, the likes of climate change, have been driven by the fact that these businesses aren't claiming responsibility for the non-financial impacts that they have through time. And it was this climate change specifically why we presented this kind of concept at COP26 last year. So that kind of outlines the Articles of Association and the problem. And we're proposing a change because, it's quite simple. Without it, without a change to the Articles of Association, the business's management, so even those with the best intentions and voluntary commitments, they're not held accountable to these non-financial impacts. They're not incentivized to act in the benefit of all stakeholders. So for their clients, for their staff, supply chain partners, the wider community. And that's something that we're really pushing for businesses to kind of take ownership, change their articles and stand up to be held to account.
Fantastic. And can you explain the difference between shareholder centrism and stakeholder alignment?
I guess it boils down to a simple difference of who the business is managed for. So whose benefit are the directors employed to base their decisions on? In shareholder centrism, all business decisions, whether it's budgeting, salaries, hiring, firing, innovation, they're all based on a narrow view of maximizing profits. Now, sure, in some cases, these businesses make voluntary commitments to other stakeholders, but typically they're not legally binding, and it's really the legal difference here. In stakeholder alignment, business decisions are made with more nuance. There needs to be an understanding of the impact on all stakeholders. I've mentioned communities, employees, the environment. And naturally, the result is different decisions made by the board, by management, that of course benefit shareholders, but also the broader stakeholders. And on a positive note, the perception is definitely changing. We're seeing that. We're moving from a thinking of stakeholder alignment somehow being a sacrifice to shareholders to a view that shareholder centrism can't actually deliver long-term sustainable business models. And by managing your business for wider societal good, makes you as a business more future fit, helps you retain staff, and allows you to innovate.
Yeah, and I think that was demonstrated in the pandemic. Those companies that did really look after all stakeholders benefited not only reputationally, but making sure their businesses were future-proofed. It would be really good to get some examples of how this change in articles and positive outcomes are linked together, how that relationship works. Do you have some that you could talk us through?
I've got a few. I'll try and pick out kind of the key ones. Just for background, so EQ is a B Corp. We were a founding B Corp in 2015, and off the back of that changed our articles to reflect our commitment to really manage our business as a force for good. So as a CEO myself, all of our directors, we're responsible to make decisions for all stakeholders, not just shareholders, and we're held to account. So that's the first thing. In terms of us as a business, we're a sustainability specialist. We're looking to help deliver solutions to the world's great challenges. And by changing our articles, it's allowed us to do things that might otherwise have been possible, but certainly not as forthcoming. So, of course, we're focused on longer term results, but less of a focus on our quarterly results, as an example, has meant that we've been able to benefit from investing for the longer term. And that's exactly what we've done. So for us, a big one has been our investment in innovation. So as you know, sustainable investing is a specialism. We launched our impact offering over 10 years ago, but we've really heavily invested in our investment and research capabilities, which has allowed us to build our expertise in impact and sustainable investing. We've got a long and strong track record and are deemed to be a thought leader with regards to our reporting capabilities. It's also allowed us to expand our product range. 2 years ago, we launched a passive sustainable portfolio range, and more recently, something more focused on climate action, supporting the world's transition to net zero. So that innovation has bred kind of a breadth of product range for us. A few other examples quickly. We're owned by our EQ Foundation and staff, and that has meant that a percentage of our profits are donated to charity partners every year. We've got a focus on social mobility and environmental charities. And our broader focus on all stakeholders has, you mentioned this, helped us to attract the best talent and retain our employees. And our employees are really important. And one of our strong partnerships is with a social mobility charity, and 10% of our workforce are hired through that charity, which really kind of improves the richness of our diversity base. And just finally on clients, I think this kind of mentality really drives trust in our brand. They invest with us for the long term, and they know that our culture is locked in and that we have to continue to deliver on our promises. And that's really important because if there's any change to the directors, to the CEOs, we will more likely see continued longevity in our strategy and our commitments, as we're held to account by these articles and the transparency that comes with that.
Fantastic. It's great to hear all of that evidence there that this really does work, and EQ seems to be at the very forefront of it all. Thank you very much for sharing that with us, Sophie.
Thanks, Natalie.